Hi, everyone. This is Jessica Mashkovich, and today I'm here with my special guest, Lynette Barbieri, a licensed financial professional who's here to talk to us all about personal finance, the world of personal finance. Hey, Lynette.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Doing great.
Excellent. Well, you know what? When the pandemic hit and everyone had a chance to clean out their kitchens and their garages and tidy everything up, we have to always take into account that one of the things needing tidying is our personal finances. Which you are a professional, which I turn to at times to ask you some questions. But I
Yep.
thought it would be great if people can learn a little bit from you about saving and spending and budgeting and investing. And I do understand that personal finances are like snowflakes, and everyone has a different scenario that they're working with.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, how do we approach our personal finances? And let's take the scenario of a couple, a husband, wife, or two spouses that are in the same room, and you're like, what do we have? What do we do?
Well, the first thing I would say is it's really good that you said a husband and wife in the room. When you have two people handling the finances, a spouse, a significant other, a partner, you both have to be in the room. You both have to have that financial conversation because not just because your spouse handles the finances possibly doesn't mean that they had any more training on it than you. It just means they're trying to do the best that they can. And if that significant other wasn't there the next day, and we all know things happen, look at the coronavirus, look at, catastrophic things that have happened in our lifetime, and people didn't expect something to happen to their significant other, things happen. So you need to be in control of your finances, whether it's somebody dies, there's a divorce.
Yeah, I actually keep a spreadsheet here. It's an Uber spreadsheet of all of our finances, every expense. Am I a control freak? Maybe. Oh, every expense.
No, I'm happy. That's excellent.
Yeah, household investments. It's called my if I get hit by a bus spreadsheet. So if I get hit by a bus, here's everything you need to know. And I don't even manage the finances. Actually, my husband manages the finances.
But that's the point. You write everything down and you know everything and you're doing it as a team. And he is a financial professional, but that doesn't matter. If he wasn't there to give you advice, you have to be able to make the phone calls and do what you need to do to survive then.
Exactly. And even if he is a financial professional, he may not be on top of the fact that, like, hey, why are we paying so much for cable? I may bring that one to the table. So we all have,
Absolutely.
what we can contribute to the finances as a whole. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So let me just say, let me back up 1 second because I think that this is important. When I started 23 years ago, I was with my husband and he told me that somebody was coming over in a little while and they were going to go over our finances. And I had a 2-year-old, maybe she was 1.5 and my daughter was 3.5. And I said, great, I'm going to go in the basement with them. We had a finished basement, playroom. And he goes, no, you have to sit up here. And I said, how am I supposed to run after them and sit with you and talk about that? And I don't really care, and he said, you have to pay attention. So I remember them coming in, me saying hello, and I was not the friendliest because I didn't want to sit there. And, I was being forced to do something I didn't want to do while I was watching my girls inside. And as they progressed and started to talk about things, one of the things they asked me that was the most profound was, what would happen to you if your husband didn't come home tomorrow and there was no more of that amount of money coming in anymore? What would you do? And I thought about it for a little bit and I thought about everything that they said and my mortgage that we just got and my $35,000 equity line of credit to fix up my house because I thought that was so smart. All that I said, I would have to call my parents and sell the house and move back in with my parents. And they looked at me and I looked at him and I was like, that is not okay. How do we fix this? So that was a moment that I realized he was doing the best that he could. And I completely ignored him. It wasn't his fault. He was trying to make me pay attention. I was somebody who wrote a check and I'd never put the balance in the checkbook. So he would go, what was this for? I don't remember. He goes, do you think that you could write the amount down. And I was like, I think it was. So that's how bad I was, you know?
And there's certainly those extremes. There's definitely that extreme. And believe it or not, I mean, you were one of those people. There are many, many, many people out there.
I was the norm. There still are.
Yeah.
There still are. So when I hear, you know, a couple, what do we do? First thing is we have to sit down together. I don't even want to sit with them separately because it doubles my work. Or the one likes what I say and then goes back and the other one says, well, why did you do it? I don't do it. Mm-hmm. So you need to create a plan. The number one thing that you have to have is a plan. So how do you start? You take everything out concerning your finances, put everything on the table. Like you said, you have a spreadsheet. People don't have a spreadsheet. Bring me your statements, your bills, your real.
That's absolutely everything. That's your phone bills, your gas bills, your credit card balances, and how many you have. You can even run a credit report to find out, you know, where you're vulnerable even.
Which I suggest that people do on an annual basis and look at where you're at. And sometimes there's a lot of erroneous things on our credit reports and you wouldn't know it if you didn't look at them. Right. So that's a good point. Yes, car payment, lease, loan, interest rate that you're paying on things, student loans, everything regarding your finances, because everything plays a role.
Right. And spending, dinners, entertainment, because a lot of things go unnoticed because they actually go onto the credit card. So when you pull, actually maybe the credit cards are a separate area, you pull that out and you just have all of your entertainment, vacations, household expenses. It's kind of like, what's your monthly nut?
There's always fixed expenses and variable expenses. That's what I talk about. Mm-hmm. So you get together, you get all your finances together. The number one thing people have to do is they have to have a budget. Mm-hmm. And with the budget comes everything that you just said. There's fixed, which means this is my car payment, this is my mortgage payment, these are my taxes, this is my health insurance, this is my life insurance. You know what every month you have to pay no matter what. You basically could average your food, your utilities, things like that. Mm-hmm. But then you have birthdays and holidays and miscellaneous gifts. And then you have vacations, and then you have children's sports that aren't all the time. They're, you know, maybe they're taking something for 3 months. And so that's your variable expenses. So what I start with is what's coming in, which is your income after taxes. What do we have to work with? Then there's your fixed expenses, what's left over that we have to work with for our variable expenses. And then I put down a list of my variable expenses and I look at that. And I also want people to track, especially now in this climate that we're in, I want them to track, what do they spend all day? What do you spend money on? Like you said, I am famous for not a credit card, but I do carry a debit card. I don't carry a lot of cash. I'm lazy. I don't go to the bank. I don't. And when I have $5 or $10, my daughter's taking it on the way out, or, you know, I want to go to Rook. Do you have $5? So I'm famous for that. So the reason I do debit is because I have to control myself. Right. So I think that what we have to do is you have to look at what you're doing on that card. When I sat down with somebody one day, they said, could you look at all my statements? I can't even look at it. The person was so anxiety driven when they looked at their money. And I said, what do you mean you can't look at it? I can't look at it. It makes me nervous. I said, okay. So I looked at it and there's all bounce check fees, like a lot of money and bounce, like $240. And
yes. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is just when you think that you're doing a good job, when you look under the covers, you have finance charges of unpaid credit cards, late charges, fees.
Yeah, they take out, hey, I got it a 0 interest loan on my washer dryer in Home Depot. It's awesome. And then I go, really? Then why are you paying 27%? Oh, well, we didn't pay the whole thing off on time. Exactly. That's why you don't get things like that unless you are saving to pay that off on a monthly basis. That's why they give you 0% interest. 90% of the people don't pay it off on time, but it sounded like a good idea while we saw the nice front load dryer, you know. So you have to do a gut check. You need to know what's coming in and what's going out, whether you like it or not. And you have to know what's your needs and what's your wants. We all have needs, right? Mm-hmm. We all have too many wants. And a lot of our wants, we could minimize once you do a plan. When you don't sit down and write a game plan, and when you don't start an emergency fund, you never look and assess those things. Because you don't even know what you're looking for or what you need. People don't know what they need. to
Now,
retire at some point.
there's a statistic out there that basically says that 40% of people, I think that's the number, cannot pay a $400 charge. They don't have an emergency fund.
It's
So if
more
they
than
would have to come up with $400 in an emergency, they would be
yeah.
unable to come up with that
It's
money.
even higher than that, and they have less than $1,000 set aside for any kind of a setback, which is exactly why people are in an all-time high credit card debt and all-time high bankruptcies and all other kinds of things that are happening right now, because we're just not. I know that sometimes there's not enough money at the end of the month, and I know we have to address that also, no matter how much you look at somebody's budget. But I could tell you most of the time, there are things that we could do within that budget, even if it's radical things. But like you just said, cable, getting Roku instead of paying cable. I have that. I don't sit down and watch cable. I watch what I want when I put the Roku thing on. I put on Netflix. Your phone bill. Who has a home phone anymore? I had a home phone forever because of my alarm system.
Right.
The alarm system changed. Our company started offering Vivint, and I didn't have to have a phone number. I saved so much money. I had Verizon for years, switched to T-Mobile. I saved a ton of money. There is money in that budget. It's just that sometimes people don't want to look for it.
Yes. And the only way to do it is to, as we started in the beginning, sit down and go over your finances, have the hard conversation. Sometimes you're dealing with, people in the house who don't want to share. They're like, why are you asking me questions? It could end up being an argument. It's a very, if someone is handling the finances, or if someone is doing most of the credit card purchases,
Yes.
You don't want that accountability and confrontation, but you have to do it. You have to bite the bullet, and you have to see what you have, what you need, what you want. And then you take it from there.
Start off the conversation with, we're a team, and I know I don't help you with the finances, or I know I spend more than I should, if that's the case with the credit cards, right? I just want to learn more so I could help more, so I could make this work for both of us.
That's great.
That's all. Because if you come, I'll have somebody go and attack. I told them that you told me that it takes 39 years to pay off a minimum on a credit card, 19.8. Why did he buy that? Now he doesn't want to see you. Of course not. You don't go home and attack somebody. That's not going to work, because they're trying to do the best that they can, So yeah, just have a conversation. And just like you talk about your goals in general, like if you have a business together or children and their college, talk about your money goals, just like you talk about other goals.
Right. Now that, when you talk about having kids and saving, if you have extra money, like you've assessed all of your plans, you put together, an Uber spreadsheet that has all of your expenses and what you're bringing in and what you're sending out and where your investments are. It's good for everyone to know exactly where your investments are, the account number and everything. There should be, no secret accounts in relationships. That's what I say.
No, check your beneficiaries on every piece of paper that you have. Make sure it's current and up to date. Make sure you have contingent beneficiaries if something should happen to the both of you together. Since you're going through your paperwork anyway, do all that.
Yes. And this is good for any age.
Any
I
age.
started it when, probably 10 years ago. So I was already, my kids were, like young, but when you're young, when you're out of college, even when you're a teenager, just start doing that same thing. If you're going to Starbucks and buying frappuccinos, just know where you're, whatever they're called.
I know, who knows?
Know where you're spending your money. Start early on and just be able to plan for your future. And now that I mentioned teenagers, let's talk for a quick second about financial literacy of teenagers. You're never too young to start being mindful of your money.
Nope, absolutely not. When my kids, all but one of them, decided they wanted to be camp counselors, they paid them, I believe that the take-home pay for the week was like $300. And these are kids starting at 13, 14. So that's a nice paycheck, right? Sure. So I opened a bank account with them and I explained that. And obviously, they don't get a debit card or anything. And I talked to them about how to save their money on the side, because they didn't need $300 to spend, because they didn't own anything and they didn't go anywhere, right? So I gave them a certain amount of money that they could put in their room, in their pocket, their cash. And if they wanted to do something that they can, or if they wanted to save up to buy something for themselves, a CD, whatever it was, they can. But then I taught them how they could put money aside for the future and how money could actually grow for them. And it doesn't just sit there. And I explained that to them. And they, every single one of them, except I'm not throwing her under the bus, but my oldest one, like didn't grab on and like to spend her money her way. But the other three, even my 19-year-old, they're very, they pay attention to that. My son is now 23 and he's excellent at automatically saving money into a Roth IRA and contributing to his 401k at work, because we've always talked about stuff like that, you know? So, and they get stuff on sale and, you know, they budget and they're really good with it. If I didn't have that conversation when they were younger and explain basic money principles, they wouldn't. I taught them when to get a credit card to build their credit. They had credit at 18, you know, simple things, and writing a check. Now, okay, everything's on the phone for my 19-year-old.
So we have saving, opening up an account, putting part of your paycheck or whatever you have, birthday money, whatnot, put a portion of it, maybe even a large portion, into a savings account or some kind of an account.
Yep.
Have starting to eventually at an age, maybe 16, get a debit card or credit card to start building your credit.
As soon as they could get it. Yep.
And then when you start your first job and you have an opportunity to contribute to retirement funds, 401k, maybe they match at your company, which is so amazing when they do that. Or even just a Roth IRA, start contributing to your retirement, even when that's so far in the future, you can't even see that happening. But it's never too early to start doing these types of things to get yourself.
No, and if your child works at any age, you could have a child who's a model and they get checks. They're professional singers or they act. It doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you get legitimately paid money. You could open an IRA and you could put away 100% of your income up to $6,000, even when you're a child.
Yeah, that's great. And that it comes from the parents. It really comes from, you know, educating from the parents.
Yep, because the illiteracy doesn't come in schools. It's better now than it was, but still not where it should be.
Right. And how do you feel about, you know, telling kids you got a birthday gift, I know you want to spend it on, you know, whatever the hottest item is, or save it or donate it, you know, like, because you want to teach your kids how to be good people also. So, you know, that whole scenario, that whole model.
They're really great at, you know, helping people and donating to something since they were young on their own. I guess they watch us do stuff and it rubbed off. I never really had a conversation about giving to somebody. They just watched, because I always, every year at my office, we adopted a family for the holidays, and they would see us get gifts and get things dropped off. And you know, with our ETT women group, we've always helped people. They've always seen that. So they get very involved in that. And I tell them, they said, how much do we spend or how much do we give? I said, what you're comfortable with. Like, that's totally up to them. Yeah, my son drops off stuff in the borough to, like, I found like 100 toothbrushes and all these big gallons of water in the garage like 3 weeks ago. And I go, what are we doing with this? And why is it in the middle of my walkway? He goes, oh, I have to bring that to the borough, to the homeless shelter. They're low. I said, okay, great. Get it in your car now. I don't tell him those things. He does it on his own.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's truly great. And when it comes to your personal finances, though, and donating, you also have to be mindful, again, of your own house, you know, making sure your life is okay in the financial realm before you start, you know, giving it all away.
Yeah, you can't give what you don't have.
Generosity feels great, but yes, you can't give what you don't have. But even if you have, you need to make sure you're taking care of all of that giant spreadsheet that we just talked about, and making sure that your house, your retirement, you know, everything else is secure. And and then, of course, you know, that's additional money too.
Well, they say if you're not good, if you're not good, you can't do good. If your financial house isn't good and in order, you can't do as much good as you'd like to do.
Correct. Yes. So I took some questions from the Facebook.
Okay.
I'm just going to access them right here.
Yeah.
To talk about some questions that other people have. And you know what? Before we get into that, how has the pandemic affected what you do? What types of questions are you getting? People calling you, and what are those questions?
Well, Because I'm in touch with my clients all the time, and on an annual basis, we always go over their game plan, and, they get calls from me, and many of them are on my phone, and they become friends and family. I'm invited over because I'm here for a long time. Some people, I have 8 family members deep into their family. I go to weddings and crazy stuff. So, I don't get panic calls because luckily they trust me, which is a really important thing. People have to know, like, and trust the person that they're working with enough not to panic in a situation like this. So I have not gotten anybody who's been out of control, I'm taking all my money and going in a bunker type of a thing. I do get calls and they'll say, I just want to make sure I'm still okay. That's a big question. And I'm like, well, sure. Did anything change? I ask questions. Did anybody lose a job? What changed in your life? You have to know these things. The other huge question I get is about saving. So should I still keep contributing to my Roth IRA because the market is horrible? It's all the way down. It's down 1,000 points. It's down, I get those questions. And I go, do you have more money to save? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, well, it's like buying things on sale. When rich people get richer when they buy things on sale, when they invest in the market, when the market is low. So if you could A, continue if you can,
right.
B, increase your savings if you can, is what I tell people. So that is that.
Increase your savings and increase your investing at the same time. Explain that. I'm sorry.
Well, increase if you're saving in a Roth IRA or your retirement savings, I should say, and you could increase them.
Yeah.
When the market is down, do so. If you can increase now your savings, you're not taking advantage of whether the market's up or down, right? Because you're saving in an emergency fund and maybe in a money market fund. That doesn't make a difference as far as what's happening in the market. However, what's happening right now in the world, I tell people, try to increase your emergency fund. Now's the time to do it. If you could find the money, let's look through your budget and see what we could do. Because we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know how many more people are going to get laid off. We don't know. You look at the news every day, and the first thing I see is how it's up in every state, the coronavirus, because they let us out and all these things. And now they don't know if they're going to let people even go back to school. We don't know. So my thing is, if you could get money from somewhere, and again, it comes from creating a game plan and creating a budget with one another, and then sitting with a financial professional to look at all this stuff and help you make the right decisions.
Right. And not to take anything away from your job, but it's almost not necessary sometimes to not even sit with a financial professional. You can sometimes get a lay of the land when you're looking at your own finances, doing some research, having some.
You could absolutely get a lay of the land. When I go to see somebody and they have all this stuff for me and put together, and they had the conversation and they did a lot of the work for me, I'm ecstatic, because now, it makes my job even easier. Where you need the financial professional is if you don't invest on your own and you're not an expert, don't try to be. You need them to review to make sure that you're on track. You need to know what your financial independence number is, so when you retire, you don't run out of money, go back to work. Your foundation of your game plan is your income protection. What kind of life insurance do you have? If you have people dependent on your income, you better make sure that it's correct and it works the way you think, and you have enough to live the lifestyle you're living now until you make changes or make decisions. So there are things that people need a financial professional for, because they don't know all these things. It's impossible, and it's not their job. But as far as goals, your budget, there are so many different tools to do budgeting now too. You could do a simple Excel spreadsheet like which is what I like, or there's all these tools and apps on the phone. So there's no excuse why people can't do something on their own. Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. So pandemic hits, money is tight, someone got laid off in the family, and people are grappling with should we be able to save, or should we still save, or should I pay the mortgage? Or my mortgage company is allowing me to skip a payment. Should I do that? Some of these financial questions, what are we doing? Like, in some circumstances, I feel like we're borrowing from Paul to pay Peter. That's
a really good question, because when that came out first on the news, when they announced that, the first thing I said to my husband was, investigate that stuff.
Yeah, it sounds appealing.
It sounds awesome. Everybody's going to want to do it. Why not? I don't have to pay my bills for 3 months. I'll do whatever. So I said, investigate it. I had a few people that work with me. Let's research it. Call like you're calling for yourself. And the fact is, when everything sounds awesome and perfect, it isn't always that way. So it doesn't always work exactly that way. So what I say to people is, your situation, if you want to find out if you could not pay for 2 or 3 months because you really can't, they really can't afford it, like they don't have the money to do it,
Mm-hmm.
call your mortgage company. You call your bank. That's specific who is going to tell. Some people are letting you do it for 3 months. Some people 2 months. Some people at the end of the 3 months, you have to make the whole payment. Now, if they were in that kind of shape in the first place, they would pay their 3 months, right? Some people, they're putting it on the back end. Find out the consequences for not paying. My thing is, if you could afford to pay, even if you have to stop saving extra for a little while, pay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pay. If you really can't, let's investigate it. But it's not cut and dry.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing with rent. A lot of states have protected people from getting evicted for not paying their rent. There's some deferment programs as well regarding rent.
Yep.
And there's some strikes by renters to not pay their rent at all in that apartment building. So there's a lot of things going on, with renters' rights, and probably best for people to turn to their state and find out how protected they are, in terms of eviction, and what their rights are as renters and what your rights are as a landlord as well.
Right. The landlord has the same issues.
Yeah.
I work in a building that's owned by two couples. There are two, it's a small building. It's an office center on Route 79. And I've not been there since the day they said that it wasn't safe, to go back out and people started getting laid off. I have not been there. I work from home. I work on Zoom, which I've done for years anyway, no problem. I don't tell my landlord I'm not going to pay because I didn't step in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Because that landlord still has to pay their mortgage. Now, there are some situations where people can't pay that because they can't pay their home bills and they have an office or something on the outside. Have a talk with that landlord. There are some landlords that got special grants or deals according to their state. And
Mm-hmm.
they may not have to pay and be deferred for a while. And they may let you not pay and then put that payment on the end of your lease. So if you were up in 12 months, it may be 14 or 15 months, and they'll extend it that way. So talk to your landlord and find out, but don't just make decisions and stop making payments. That's not going to solve anything.
Yes, correct. And it's in all these conversations that you have with people, have a notebook, have a file. I have a file called Pandemic. I have a notebook called Pandemic. And any conversations that I have, whether it's with my accountant or with my husband, or or if there's articles that I find of interest, I stick it in the folder, print it, I stick it in the folder.
I do have a lot of articles too. I do the same thing. I keep it on my computer because things are always changing.
Right. And mainly if you're having conversations with the mortgage company, with your car insurance company, with, your landlord or whatever, log it in that notebook, date, time, contact.
And the person you spoke to.
The person you spoke to. Yes. Just in case you ever have to refer back to it or you need it. I'm very big on that whole documentation.
Me too. Well, because of the business I'm in, I'll get an answer and then I'll tell somebody something. But if that answer that I was given is incorrect and I'm giving them incorrect information, I'm the one responsible. So I always have made sure that I make notes on when and who I spoke to.
Yes. And follow it up with an email in writing. Thank you for the conversation. Here's what we talked about, and here's where we netted out. Or you ask the representative, can you send me this in writing? Which they never do, but just ask anyway.
At least get an email verifying it. You're right, because you need that. Because I do know of people who are calling on their cars as well. And they're lowering interest rates on the car loans, or they're stretching them out and putting it on the back end. They're holding off payments. It's not all car dealerships either. Depends on who's holding your loan. So you have to find that out and you have to contact them directly. Don't just stop paying because you could wake up and there could be a tow truck on your driveway and they're repoing your car. You know.
That's important. I know you can also call your car insurance, and because of the fact that you're not driving to work, you're putting very minimal, if any, miles on your car. I mean, I get like what was that? 2 weeks to the gallon. I
Oh, I
wrote
know.
that on Facebook. I'm like, getting 2 weeks to the gallon on this.
I probably get 4 weeks to the gallon then.
Because no one's going anywhere. But your car insurance companies know that as well, and they've been reducing your insurance, or giving slight refunds and stuff based on.
100%. I've been telling this, that's all part of writing down everything you spend. And if you're wrong and your company doesn't do anything, so what? You spent 5 minutes asking. Just ask.
Exactly. Don't stop making your payments. Reach out, call the 800 numbers, be on hold for 2 hours if you have to. Ask a question, and you might be pleased with the answer. But
Absolutely.
two things that pop into my head. During times like this, when it's hard to make your car payment, hard to make your mortgage payment, your credit card bills are piling up. I almost feel some people think of their credit limit on their credit cards the same as they would their liquidity of their personal finances. And it's liquidity is really based on how much cash you have on hand and how quickly you can get out of investments in order to to make
Access
that
it. Yep.
happen. But I feel that people are relying a little bit too much on the credit limits of their credit cards, as well, if the shit hits the fan, I'll just go to my credit card and start charging stuff.
I see that a lot.
How dangerous is that?
Very. I see that a lot in general with people who don't want to analyze or pay attention to needs versus wants. They want, and that's it. And they'll just keep doing that. And I could only advise, you could bring a horse to water, you can't make it drink. I could only advise. And then when they're in trouble and they can't make those payments and they have no more money available on those cards, because making the minimum payments or just paying the little amount they have, it's not making a dent. They don't understand it. And then they're mad at everybody, and it's a very unfortunate situation. That's why a lot of people then turn to bankruptcy or debt collectors, because they're 90 days in the arrears, and debt companies call them. And, don't get me started on that stuff, because they're paying fees for somebody to pay their bills, and they shouldn't be doing that in the first place.
I'm gonna get you started on that stuff, because that was my next question regarding personal bankruptcy. And you get to a point where you've gotten your stimulus check, you've gotten your unemployment, your house, your mortgage, everything is just swallowing you up basically. And when do you approach the subject or the thought of personal bankruptcy? And what is
I approach it extremely carefully, because I'm supposed to be helping people with their money. So telling them to just throw in the towel and file is, for me to give somebody advice like that verbally, really has to be that there is no other way possible. Like, I will tell people to sell their home and downsize before I would say file bankruptcy. Not that it's a bad thing, don't get me wrong. I believe that there are very good people and things happen, and they have to restart. And whether it's 7 or 13 and they pay back, it depends on their situation.
7 or 13, you mean?
Chapter 7, it wipes out the bankruptcy. Chapter 13 is just and they make payments. And I've seen that in businesses, people who own restaurants, different things, and they owe 200,000, but they have a plan to make payments over a long period of time. So it's a different type of a bankruptcy. I really think that if they are in a position where there are no suggestions, and I really don't know where else they could turn other than sometimes it's making an extra $500 or $1,000 a month to get their head above water, and we figure out what that number is. And some people aren't willing to do that, no matter what that is. And that's their personal preference. So if they're not open to doing that, and believe me, I have people who just look at me like I'm crazy, $500, and I'm like, you can clean houses for $25. I mean, there's stuff that you could do, but
right.
I'm not knocking people.
You can your own house and sell stuff on eBay. You can open up an Etsy account. You can. It all sounds easy, but when you're dealing with a financial situation where a family is approaching bankruptcy,
that's the thing. If you're already in that, Yeah, you're overwhelmed. If you're already
Right.
in that situation, you're overwhelmed.
Well,
And it's,
downsizing your house, trying to find ways to earn a little bit more money, finding just how underwater are you?
yep.
Are you right here or are you down here?
You know, I
Sometimes
tell
people have
people
to
that,
leave their house and just leave it for the bank and say, you know what? We have too much invested in it in terms of like the bank owns more than we do, and we have home equity on top of that, and you know, it
well,
just doesn't.
that's what happens. You know, the real estate market went down. Some people bought their house when the market was up. The house is upside down. A lot of short sales were the hot thing, you know, 8 years ago, and which really ruined their credit anyway if they just walked away. So if I really feel that somebody's in that situation and there's nowhere else to go, I tell them to talk to their accountant and talk to an attorney who specializes in that,
Uh-huh.
and just get a free consultation, because they have to know everything. I don't know that. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not an accountant. So they really need to make the right decision. So before I could say throw in the towel, I think that they should just have a consultation, and then it's a personal decision of which
Yeah.
way they want to go with it. Um, and it happens. And when it does happen, you can help people rebuild everything as
Yeah.
well and get
So
back
it's
on.
not an easy restart button. It's not a, hey, let's get the debt wiped clean. It's not an easy solution. It is a complex solution. Talk to your lawyer, talk to your accountant. Make sure you're
100%.
making smart decisions based on your age and your assets and all that stuff. You know,
Yeah, there's so many variables to that, you know. There's so many variables that you really have to talk to somebody who's in it all the time, who tells you, okay, we could do this, but this is going to happen,
yeah.
or we could do this and this is going to happen. They have to know. People don't know. Do I keep my card? Do I lose my card? Do I keep a credit card? Do I lose a credit card? Do I keep my house? I have equity in it. There's a lot of questions, and they really need to sit. I advise that you write every single solitary thing down, record the conversation if you can, and then don't make any decisions. So you go home and really discuss it and pick what's the best decision for you.
Good. Yeah, that's a heavy one. Definitely a heavy one. Um, so I'm turning back to the Facebook. When does it make sense to put money towards your IRA versus towards your kids' education? Now, this is not pandemic related. This is everyday finance questions. Should I save for my retirement, or should I be saving for my kids' college education?
Huge question that I get all the time when people have young children. And I always use myself as an example because it is a personal preference. That is a different answer depending on who you're speaking to. Sometimes it is the most important thing to them in the world, and they'll go live in a cardboard box afterwards, and you can't change their mind, and that's okay, because that's their business. What I tell them is my personal opinion, and the reason why I say I have 4 children is so they don't think I'm a cold-hearted person and I don't care about children. No, I love my children, but they could get student loans, they could get scholarships, and I cannot get a retirement loan. And I do not want to live with my children when I retire, nor do they want me to live with them. So you could save for college within your game plan. Make sure that what you save is in alignment with what you need for retirement, what you need in your mandatory fixed budget and your emergency fund, and then do it. Don't try to do something that you can't do. People take out loans on their homes to pay for college. I would never do something like that personally.
That's interesting. That's really tough because the cost of college is so huge, so much huger than it was when I went to school. And, you know, just the commitment and parents wanting the best for their kids and
Help them as much as you can, but that doesn't mean
yeah.
that, you know, I get parents whose children have had a free ride to go to a school and they didn't take it because they didn't want to go to that school. And then they did something else and the parents still paid for it and now they're in debt. Or, my son wanted to go to Georgian Court. He went to NJIT and he was got picked to play lacrosse. And this stuff happened between the college and high school with his credits, and he didn't get to play. And I think it was the coach. They don't care as long as they get you, and they don't care about the middle. And I fought tooth and nail, but I couldn't fix it. So he decided he wanted to leave. He came back to Brookdale to finish this second part of the semester to decide what he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach called him from Georgian Court, where my nephew went to school, and he wound up going there. Now, Georgian Court is literally 20 minutes from my house.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I want to sleep there. I said, I'm not paying for you to sleep 20 minutes from my house. I'm not. He goes, but we wake up and we practice. I go, then you wake up 20 minutes earlier and you drive there.
Yeah.
So he took a student loan out for the amount of room and board, and he doesn't have really loans for other things. He took it out for that, and he's paying for it. And he never feels bad or brought it up, and I don't feel bad at all. Yeah. I'm not going to pay that kind of money for him to live 20 minutes, away from the house. I'll get a vacation condo first.
So it is personal choice, and from an adult perspective, it's more important to take care of your own retirement, because exactly what you said, kids have a lot more flexibility for student loans, and you don't have any flexibility for getting a retirement loan, when you graduate into your elder self, I should say.
Right, and then some people are forced into retirement earlier, and that's just the way it is. And
yes.
And then we have to figure it out.
Briefly about retirement, and you definitely said that was that's not your expertise. But when it comes to retirement, people should also know that you get Medicare when you're older, but you also have to pay supplemental insurance. There's another spreadsheet that you should create with your spouse, or by yourself if you're by yourself, or with whomever, and just make sure that you have like the lay of the land for your future 10, 20, 30 years from now when you do go into retirement. It's, it's not just, okay, we'll take care of our living expenses and stuff. You have to take care of your health expenses. Social Security might cover some of it, Medicare, but then you have a whole big chunk of supplemental, which is another big health insurance cost. And
it is. What happens when you do your game plan, in your living expenses is going to be your insurances and all that kind of stuff, right? So that chunk of money, all that is taken into consideration in today's dollars. But let's say you're going to retire in 20 years. The computer projects out 20 years how much you have to still pay those things, and it goes up with inflation every year. So when I'm doing the game plan, I'm asking what they pay now. We're cushioning some of that to some extent. The thing is, and I get questions all the time from my clients that they're starting to get older. My one client is retiring at 63, so she could take her social at 62, but she's not getting her Medicare yet. And then she's asking me about supplemental. So what I do is, ask people of that age, what they use, do some research. That way you could get kind of a rule of thumb handle on what it costs now. And obviously it's probably going to cost more, but at least we could get a baseline of what it is. I have an accountant that works with me actually, and he just turned 65 and he had to go for the supplemental. And I ask him a lot. I ask him if he would give my client advice on what he learned about it. So, I tell people what to do as far as research goes, but I don't know. And I'm telling you, nobody, even the health professionals, don't really know, because it's changed so much over the last 10 years. I pay my own because I'm self-employed. So I know how much it's changed and how many times companies have changed on me over the years and how much more it costs. I get it. So you definitely have to cushion. They say, will it go up? I can't see it not. I see it getting worse than better, in my opinion. So, you have to cushion for that, because you will get your Medicare. You have to get supplemental, or it doesn't cover anything. It is an expense, and then the whole other part of the conversation is when you get closer to that age, you own a home, you have some assets, go sit with an attorney and talk to an attorney who does estate planning and get some advice on your situation. They may have some tips and some things and some insight on what to do to protect your assets.
At what age should you start meeting with someone regarding estate planning?
Do you have an estate? Do you see the estate growing? I mean, have you been putting money away in your 401k? Do you have equity in your home? Stuff like that. I mean, some people rent and they don't have any money. There's no reason to go to an estate planning attorney. But if you do, and I don't mean wealthy, I mean just like normal, like you're saving in your 401k, you have equity in your home, you're still making money and putting money away, I would definitely say 55. There's nothing wrong with starting to do it in your 50s, because if there's anything that you have to tweak, you have time. When you go under duress, which I did with my mom, it is a lot more expensive. People take advantage of that. And you sometimes have to work under the gun to fix stuff, if it can be fixed at all. So why not go and talk to them and get all your options?
Right, because you do spend all, most of your life investing and putting things in certain accounts, and then as you get older, there's, you get taxed when you withdraw it, or maybe you have to withdraw it in a certain way to get the best, to not get taxed as much. Actually, that's a good question while we're on this retirement estate planning thing. When you contribute to your 401k, if you're working for a company and you're contributing to a 401k, at what point do you contribute less your 401k and switch it over to more of like a Roth IRA? Because one is pre-tax and then one is you just get taxed on
tax-free
disbursements.
So, well, a Roth IRA is tax-free. What my advice to people who ask me that is, again, there's more than one answer, because everybody has a different situation as far as income and things like that, right? So you have to ask your accountant specifically what you can do. But if I was contributing to my 401k and they match me, I would put in the amount up to the match. And then I would take the money that I still could afford to put away in retirement on a Roth IRA on the outside and try to maximize that. If my 401k didn't match me at all, I would maximize my Roth IRA, because again, there's not that much money that you could put in the Roth IRA, right? It's $6,000 a year right now. It's $7,000 if you're over 50. So it's not that much. So I would maximize the Roth, and if I had a little money left over, I would put it in the 401k without a match. So I'd be heavier on the Roth IRA. That's because if you go to retire and you're at a 28% tax bracket, you take your 401k money out. Let's just say hypothetically it's $250,000. Mm-hmm. And you go to take money out, you're paying 28% taxes on that, right? But if the Roth IRA grew to $250,000, you're going to take that out and you're not paying taxes on it. So that is a big difference. So my thing is, a Roth IRA is a good thing. However, you have to be able to qualify income-wise. So that is a question for your accountant. Do I qualify for the Roth IRA? If you qualify for the Roth IRA, then you could do it. You might be asking the question and you don't even qualify for the Roth IRA. So you have to find that out.
Good advice. Good advice. Back to the teenagers. I'm looking back at some of the Facebook questions. If a teenager was to start saving money, did I ask this question? I might have, I'm not sure. How early is it? Is it ever too early to start saving for retirement? I know that, like investing when you're younger and having the risk out there when you're younger, you're able to be a little bit more risky in your investments.
I wish I had the sheet to show you. I have a chart that shows if somebody starts saving at 21 and they stop at 29 and they put in the maximum amount for a Roth IRA over that time frame and they never put money in again, by the time they're 67, they're well into being almost a $2 million millionaire. But if you start at the 28 or 29-year-old putting it away, you have to put it away the whole time until you retire at 67. So it's because compound interest is so powerful. So it's never too early. Like you asked me that before, and I mentioned about my kids in camp. If they have extra money to put aside and you're leaving them enough money in the bank, yes, I would. And they earn income.
In a specific retirement account.
Right, in a Roth IRA, and they earn income. They have to earn income. You can't get cash from a babysitting. It has to be earned income.
Got it. Good advice. I hope that more kids are saving. There's a bunch of apps out there that I just learned about this morning. There's something called Acorn and Betterment or something.
I just recently learned about them too, a couple of years ago when they first came out. It's just a forced savings,
Right.
It's not a bad thing.
Nope. It's actually more generation specific. Yep. It sort of gamifies savings and investing.
They like it, and they like to look at their phone, and they like to, see how much they got for shopping. I don't think it's a bad thing, but that's on the side. That's like emergency fund money.
True. But with these apps, you can also immediately invest and immediately save, and it empowers kids to do their own investing
and to pay attention.
and to pay attention, to watch things grow and to watch things fall, and to hopefully not turn them into gambling addicts and playing the market.
Exactly.
But,
Exactly. I still think they need a little bit, they need a little bit of an education to know, you know, they don't know things could go up, things could go down. Like they need a little bit of an education on that thing, and let them research. And even if you tell them to go look this up and stuff like that, because, you know, they all of a sudden, you know, my son would come in and this stock is awesome and it's this much money. And I'm like, okay, is that $1,000 that if you lose it, you are gonna not be able to pay your bills? Like, because that's what could happen in the stock market. So
never invest any more than you're willing to lose, because you can, certainly it can vanish before your eyes. And
just like you go to Atlantic City, you put I don't, because I'm too cheap, but you put a certain amount of money in your pocket and you go to Atlantic City and you say, this is it, this is all I have. And some people stick to that. Same thing when you're gonna, you know, buy a stock. It's money that you could afford to lose.
Yes. So I think a main theme of the whole financial literacy and taking hold of your finances is it empowers you. It empowers you as a person, as a young adult, as an old adult. I'll be an old adult.
I am an old adult.
Yeah. It empowers you to take control of what you can control, and to, you know, to assess your finances, to see where you're bleeding out, to see where the opportunities are, to avoid bankruptcy, you know, as a solution, you know, to make sure that you're living within your means, and if not even within your means, even a little leaner than that. You know, a lot of people are walking around fronting with, you know, huge houses and nothing in their bank account, or the, you know, the most expensive sneakers and, you know, nothing to show for it.
Yep.
But,
it's like,
you know,
that book. Did you ever hear of The Millionaire Next Door?
No.
It's a really good book, and I can't remember who wrote it. I read it more than once, and it talks about living below your means. And people will automatically say that person drives a Mercedes and they have a really nice house and they make a lot of money. And the person that lives in the 3-bedroom ranch, with a, you know, no property, and they drive a used Toyota, they never buy a new car, they can't possibly have any money. And I know myself from going out to see people over the years, some of my clients never earned over 50,000 in their lifetime, and they're already financially independent and retired and could live from now on. And because they did they lived below their means and they made the right financial decisions. So never judge a book by its cover. You don't know. And the saying is, stop buying things you can't afford to impress people you don't know, because that's what people do. We buy stuff for other people to look at. And then you go to retire and, you know, are those people worried about you living in a trailer? Like, no. So, you know, start thinking about you. It's not about other people. It's about you, and make yourself a priority.
Yes. And it's humbling. It's humbling. If you have to trade in that Lexus or that, you know, BMW for a regular car, it's humbling. But that's what you have to do. And you have to do it for yourself and your family and your retirement and other priorities. You know, you may have other things that require your attention or require your money, and you know,
you know,
coming to grips with that is definitely humbling. So have that conversation, you know, sit down together with your spouse or by yourself and, you know, face it. Just face it, all of it.
Just face all of it. Exactly. And the closer that you come, the older that you get, the more you should be looking at areas that, if you really want to retire earlier, which you should want to, then you really have to look at that. You know, do I drive this, or do I save an extra $300 a month into my retirement account so I can retire? Do I buy this, or do I go on that cruise that I've always wanted to go to Europe next year, because that's memories you can't get back? But
right. Yeah, there's always going to be a trade-off, and nobody says live like you're poor, but you can live a regular life with, you know, getting good experiences
within your means.
Within your means. Save for it, and, you know, spend it accordingly. Make the memory, like you just said.
Absolutely. So make sure that you get that game plan. You have to get that game plan to see where you're at, or none of the stuff that we are talking about will work.
Yeah. I wonder how many people after watching this are actually going to sit down and create a giant spreadsheet with all of their finances, you know, bring their spouse in, or, you know, have a day of reckoning with themselves and say, what am I spending on? And
Well,
it's
I
mind
mean,
blowing.
I don't want to take more time if our time's up. Do we have any more time?
It's not up.
So the pandemic situation, what you just said is a great point, and addressing the world as it is today is, I don't believe that people can't get together and have that conversation now. Everybody has more time. Even if you're not working from home and you're going into work, you're not going out to networking groups like you used to. You're not going out to dinner like you used to. You don't not running to sports games at night like you used to. We have more time than ever before, no matter what. Even if your home business is busy, you're still home more than you were ever before. And there's still those pockets of time where you're not driving, you're not going to. So now it's now or never. Like, take some time instead of watching, whatever people watch on reality TV and stuff like that. Tape something if you can't miss it, and sit down and do this first. Have the, where are we at right now? Because
yeah, and it's not going to be fun. It is not going to be fun.
And sometimes it's not as bad as you think either. It really depends. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes you're in a bad situation, but isn't it good to know that if you write it all on paper and then you feel like you're stuck and you ask somebody what I could do and there are some options, you could breathe again? I would rather feel better. Like, if I was sick and I went to a doctor, I'd rather take the medicine than stay home and just complain about being sick and not having anybody look at me.
Yeah.
And financial, stress, number one cause of women heart attacks is financial stress in women. Financial stress makes us physically sick. So we have enough to worry about, right now, that could make any of us go out of our minds.
Right.
And why make it be your finances also? Why not just get it in check? Do the hard thing now, spend a little time looking, start following the budget now. We spend so much less money right now from not leaving the house, right, in the last couple of months, that even if you have less money, when, I still think that there's money for most in that budget in bills that you're already paying, like we just talked about, and you never called to do anything about it just because you didn't ever have time in the past and you never needed to. So you could do that. And a lot of people are ordering online, again, things they don't need. Stop ordering stuff. I go online. My husband, it drives him crazy. I'm online late at night if he's watching something stupid and I don't want to think anymore, like Family Guy, like something I would rather. So, and I don't want to read anymore about money. I don't want to do work. I just want to do nothing. I Google New York and Company sale, what's going on in Target, what's going on in Macy's. And I look at things and I pick them out. I don't know why. And I put them in a shopping cart. And he goes, all you do is shop. I go, look on my computer. I have not bought one of these things. Like, it's like therapy. So, because then at the end, I'm like, I really don't need this. Where the heck am I going? Type of a thing. So I really haven't bought anything other than things that my kids needed or birthdays that just passed. But use some of that money and just put it towards yourself. If nothing else, this situation created that life could change in a moment, and everything could go upside down in a heartbeat. And people lost businesses and people lost loved ones, which is horrible. And the horrible things going on with the protests and the riots and these poor people who lost their lives, and all life just changes in a heartbeat. And we can't control everything, but you can control your financial house. You really can, if you pay attention to it. So why not keep that in order and deal with everything else that we have to deal with?
Yes, I agree. Grandparents used to say, save for a rainy day. It's raining. It's raining. And a lot of people didn't save. So, we can be better. We're still here and we can be better. And when you do start combing through your finances, you'll see that Weight Watchers membership you've had for years, you've never gone to a meeting since, the first 5 pounds you lost. And, you'll see magazine subscriptions where you don't even read magazines anymore.
What about the phone apps? On the phone apps that people have, when I was talking about that person before, and I was looking at her, I go, what is this $140 a month? So it was something tied into the checking.
Whoa.
But you had to look at it to utilize it. Do you know how much money that is?
Oh my gosh.
For something you're never ever going to utilize. It wasn't a magic thing where they said, I manage your checkbook. It's like, this is a program to help manage your checkbook. Well, if you're not looking at your bank account, just things like that, food subscriptions, vitamin subscriptions, because we signed up one day and then they kept, sending, because I did that a lot of times. I'm going to try this. I'm going to lose 40 pounds in 2 days, and then I'm going to cancel it at the end of the month. And, 6 months later, I'm still getting this shit and I still didn't lose 2 pounds. So we're all guilty of it. Look at the money that you spend on your apps too. That's coming out of your debit card. I did a video on this recently. Do mini weekly assessments. I choose Sunday nights. You could choose whatever you want to go over. Just pull up your bank account. Look at it. Look at your debit.
By yourself. Absolutely. By yourself for sure. And have quarterly meetings. We have quarterly meetings, my husband and I, at the kitchen table, just to go over the Uber spreadsheet and see what's he's done, what I've done, how much we're spending on wine during the pandemic. What sort of good habits.
I'm not cutting that. I just buy cheap wine.
Remember,
priorities.
But like the gym memberships, or go out.
All my kids stop their gym memberships. I understand that it is not good for the gyms. I do. I totally understand that. And my son actually just started going back to the one in Freehold, because if you saw it on Facebook, and I forget the name, I shouldn't say the name anyway, but they have their exercise bikes and stuff in this giant parking lot. So people can come back and ride the treadmills and stuff, which is awesome, and they're not expensive a month. So I said, go back, support them, do that, and do your
love the creativity. I love the creativity that has come out. Businesses are shining. I know desperate times call for desperate measures, but some of these concepts, I hope a lot of them stick around, because
I do too. I really do. I think that, I know for me, the one thing that I've gotten out of this is slowing down is good. Taking a step back and slowing down is okay. You're not like, sometimes I think we just keep going because we think something's going to happen if we miss that one thing. And if I didn't go there and I'm not there and nobody sees me there, what's going to happen? And we're so worried about what are people going to think? What if that person's mad at me if I didn't go? What if I don't get that one sale because I didn't go to that one meeting? None of it matters once you can't go out for a couple months. And I realize slowing down is good. It's okay. And I intend to keep obviously go out again, but not as intensely as I did before. And I know that everything's going to be okay if I did that. I could think more clearly now. I focus more clearly now. I'm not as short with, my family and people now. I've had phenomenal conversations with friends on, Zoom cocktail parties, and phenomenal conversations with my kids. And you realize how much you miss that and how little time you spend doing that when you're out on the run all the time.
Yeah.
So you
I have a feeling that things, I would love it to stay the way that it is now, but I have a feeling that things are definitely going to get back, and people that have appreciated all the family time are still going to run to the office as soon as they can. And,
it's an individual thing like everything
back
else.
into the old practices, but it is.
I think a lot of people are going to change. I do. I think a lot of people will go back to what they did before, but I think quite a few people are also going to, people who reflect and think and look at what they're grateful for every day. Like people like that, I think are going to make some changes.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's hopeful. And the businesses that were not able to recover from this, I feel horrible for them.
Horrible.
I don't know what's going to be with the economy, the unemployment rate, the economy, the stock market. I've watched.
None of us, you have to have a crystal ball, you know.
But, I wish everyone well, and at least you can try and control what you can control and take hold of your household. And you know what? When this all came about and when all these changes started happening in my business and my husband's business and the kids were home and the online schooling, I'm a strong person and I can roll with the punches. I don't mind change and all of that. But, with the financial stress and things were still piling on, I had a breakdown moment, I cried in the shower one day. Yep. And I'm like, you know what? That's totally okay. It's totally okay. When you come to see what your financial picture is and, whether it's good for you for the future or whether it shows that it's not good for you for the future, you just gotta approach it, and
You
then
got to approach it. If you don't face it head on, I could guarantee that you will fail, right?
yeah,
There's no
yeah, you
way
can't
around
put
it.
your head in the sand
So
on
so you
any.
could cry forever, right? You can't bury your head in the sand. It's not going to go away. It's always going to be there. Like if you're sick and you don't get treated, you'll die eventually, because you don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about being sick, but if you are, you have to take care of it. And with your finances, if they're bad, they're not going to get better if you don't look at them. They're only going to get worse. I could guarantee you that, unless you win lotto and you have more of a chance being hit by lightning, as we know. So that's probably not going to happen. I think that, just think about the situation. Think about people who lost loved ones. Think about businesses that completely went under, and there's no way that they just have to go do something else. There's no way they're ever going to survive. Think about people that will lose their houses because they just didn't save, and then they lost their job, and then they just went deeper and deeper. And thank God that you're not in that position. If you're not in that position, and say, I'm just going to there's always somebody out there that has a worse situation than you. That's
Right.
what I
There's
think.
always someone better, and there's always someone worse, for sure. And
Absolutely.
you may be pleasantly surprised when you sit and open up all your finances and have the conversation with yourself or with your spouse. You may be like, wow, I didn't know we had that. And that's
Exactly.
pretty good. And I feel
Pretty good.
better. So now I'm a woman who's not as stressed, not me, but you could be a person who's not as stressed, and you're less chance of dying of the financial stress heart attack.
You just don't know. I'll tell you a quick story, but I won't go into it because it takes a long time, but a longer time. Years ago, in the thick of building my business, we bought a house near you. And I had 3 kids, and they were, my son was like 1.5. They were all 2 years apart. And the office I was working out of was in Metuchen. So I had to get on the turnpike, which, in Millstone is like a 15-minute damn ride just to get to the turnpike. And there were no supermarkets. There was no great adventure outlets. There was nothing there. So I was always in the car. And then I had to see people, and then I had to drive, in the pitch black with the deer and all that at night, late, if I was on appointments. There was no Zoom or things like that. And, taxes were crazy. And then, so 3 years we worked like that, and we argued a lot, and we were stressed out because one was never home if the other one was home. It just was a mess situation, and we were paying our bills, but we had nothing extra. So we couldn't do anything. And it was always important to me, and it still is today, to have fun. I could have fun cheap, but I want to have fun. I don't care if it's $25 on the water at a happy hour, but take me. You know what I mean? And we were at the point of not being able to do anything on top of it, which was working on my brain. And I sat with somebody who hired me years ago in the business, and I called them and I said, I'm done. I am completely done. I'm having a breakdown. I'm not talking to him. You talk to him. I'm not doing this anymore. He goes, you're not doing what anymore? I'm not doing anything anymore. Done. And I don't get like that. So he goes, what are you doing tomorrow? I go, nothing. I'm done. He goes, I'm coming over. So he comes over and talks to us at the kitchen table, and I'll never forget it because he picked up my son. His son is a year younger. He didn't have kids yet. He's all in a suit, really nice suit with the cufflinks with his initials to go somewhere. Picks up my son, who liked to be naked. My son pees all over.
Oh my gosh.
So I start crying, which I never do either. I'm not a crier. And I was just like, do you see? I'm just done. He goes, what? Because your son peed. So he talked. I didn't talk. My husband talked, and I just sat there, and I didn't talk the whole time. And at the end, what I realized was, a house is just a house. It's not you. It's not your family. A situation is just a situation. If you have your health and you have your family and your kids are well, and there's always a way out. And he said to me, why do you have to have this giant house? I go, I don't know. I just wanted a bigger yard. He goes, are you ever in the yard? No. I just had a brand new house with a yard. I couldn't fix the yard. I couldn't build the deck. We were not in the yard. I wasn't even home. He goes, are you happy in this house? He goes, you don't look happy. And we looked at each other, and I go, I guess not. I guess we're not happy. So he goes, you could be happy again. So he talks about all this stuff, and we listen, and we put things together, and we weren't behind, but my husband was always, really robbing Peter to pay Paul and keep it together. And we had the house for 3 years. We made money on it. Thank God we didn't let it reverse. And if I didn't talk to him, it would have went south eventually. but I talked to him at the right time. So make sure when you're having that breakdown, you reach out to somebody who could think about it clearly for you and talk to you. Because when you're in it, you can't see clearly. I did finance. I couldn't see clearly. Like my life was not working for me and I couldn't see. So we wound up finding something closer to a
I'm
friend's
gonna have to put
office.
you on speed dial at times because I'm so impulsive. There's so many times where I just wanted to, like, I don't know, sell the car or sell the house or
And that's when you need to make a
sell the
phone
kids.
call. Yeah, you need to make a phone call. I might tell you to sell the kids though. You need to make a phone call and have somebody who has an unbiased opinion and cares about you and has your best interest at heart, of course, and will sit and talk with you. And so what happened was I was going to rent for a year close to where my friends had an office who do the same thing, and they had space for me and said, come work with me. Who wanted to go to Metuchen anymore? And the place was 5 minutes from the office, and it turned out that we could buy it for cash. We bought it, so it lowered our bills astronomically. And 3 years later, I have Victoria, which I didn't expect, my baby. And I'm like, well, this was great. We saved money. We need to make a move because now we have this. And I always wanted to be back in this area. What do we do? And then, so we came here and found an office in Freehold and bought a home here and reassessed, and my business grew dramatically in those 3 years because I had no money stress and I had time to go out, and we did Friday date day and night. Ever since then, I still do that, except we're in the house, so every day is that. But Friday was always, I work for a couple hours in the day. We go to happy hour. I like to go out early for a couple hours, and that was our thing. I went out. We spent quality time together. We spent quality time with the kids. The amount of stress it lifted, our business got better, our relationship got better. You know, our kids were fine. We thought they'd die if we leave. They don't even remember that house.
Yeah.
They remember the place we moved to that I didn't want to stay in, you know? So there is always an answer out there for you. Talk to somebody who has an unbiased opinion, who will try both of you at the same time. It's okay if you act like an idiot, you don't talk to them like me, or you cry, or you fight in front of them. So what? They're listening, and they're going to give you something back. And it's an easy answer for me to give somebody else, but I couldn't see clearly through my own bullshit. So that's what happens to a lot of people. So find somebody who sees clearly through your bullshit when you sit down. If it's a mess, you could send me, you know, they could send me messages. I could answer. You don't have to ever see me. I could answer questions if they have questions. Just let somebody help you and get out of your own way. You have to get out of your own way, or it's never going to change. You're going to have the same conversation next year, and you know, we don't know what's happening. So you might as well get in check now.
Yeah. I agree. And great advice. Wonderful, awesome conversation. Everyone just, you know, assess your own finances so you could see where you need help, where you don't need help. You might be pleasantly surprised. You might be really depressed about the whole situation, but, you know, do it. Just do it. Rip the Band-Aid off and do it.
Absolutely. 100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everything. I appreciate it, you being on, and all this great advice.
Oh, thank you. I had a great time. I hope I answered everybody's question. If there's any questions you want me to answer, you know where they could send me anything, and I'll be on it.
Information. We'll, you know, encourage them to post some questions even after watching the video, and you know, we'll check in with people every now and then.
Absolutely. Enjoy your day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.